The rain hammered down on Verdania's thick jungle canopy, turning the patrol route into a slippery mess of mud and twisted roots. Corporal David Reed wiped water from his face for the 100th time that hour, wondering why command insisted on sending soldiers out in this weather. His boots squelched through another puddle as he pushed aside a massive fern leaf. Something glinted ahead, catching what little light filtered through the storm clouds. David held up his fist, signaling his squad to halt. The other 3 soldiers froze, weapons raised. David crept forward, scanning for threats. The jungle had been quiet lately, but that meant nothing. Quiet often came right before an ambush. The glinting object sat wedged between 2 ancient tree roots, partially buried in mud. David knelt down, brushing away the wet soil. Not a weapon, not a piece of equipment. Something round and smooth, about the size of a basketball, covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water. "What is it?" Private Collins whispered, moving closer. "No idea." David ran his fingers over the surface. Warm. Definitely warm, despite the cold rain. "Might be some kind of egg. We should report it," Collins said nervously. "Protocol says any unknown xenofauna gets flagged for the science team." David nodded, reaching for his comm unit. The object shifted under his hand. A crack appeared along one side, spreading like lightning across the scaled surface. David jerked backward, raising his rifle. The crack widened. A small clawed foot pushed through, then another. The shell broke apart in chunks, revealing a creature that made David's breath catch. It looked like something from an old Earth fairy tale, all wings and scales and sharp little teeth. A dragon, barely bigger than a house cat, covered in membrane and fluid from the egg. The baby creature blinked huge golden eyes at David. It made a sound, somewhere between a chirp and a whistle. Then it stumbled forward on wobbly legs and pressed its head against David's boot. "Oh no," David muttered. "Don't do that." The dragon rubbed against his leg like an affectionate kitten, making happy, chirping sounds. It looked up at him with those enormous eyes, and David felt something twist in his chest. The little thing was helpless, barely able to walk, and it clearly thought he was supposed to take care of it. "Reed, we need to call this in," Collins insisted. I know." David reached down slowly. The dragon climbed onto his hand without hesitation, curling its tail around his wrist. It was surprisingly light, and already the membrane was drying into proper scales. We should get out of the rain first." Collins gave him a look that said he knew exactly what David was doing, but he didn't argue. The patrol headed back to base, with David carrying the dragon inside his rain jacket to keep it warm. The creature purred against his chest, a rumbling vibration that felt oddly comforting by the time they reached the outpost. David had made a decision he knew would probably end his career. He slipped away from the group during the equipment check-in, heading for the barracks instead of the command center. The dragon peeked out from his jacket, chirping curiously at the new surroundings. "Listen," David whispered to it, setting the creature on his bunk. "I just need a few hours to figure this out, okay? Stay quiet." The dragon tilted its head, then settled onto his pillow like it belonged there. David managed to hide the creature for exactly 6 hours. He smuggled food from the mess hall, brought water in his canteen, and even fashioned a makeshift nest from spare blankets. The dragon seemed perfectly content, playing with a rolled-up sock and practicing tiny hops that barely got it airborne. Everything fell apart during lights out. David was drifting off to sleep when he heard the chirping. Not the happy sounds from earlier. These were distressed, almost panicked. He sat up and found his bunk empty. The dragon was nowhere in sight. No, he hissed, dropping to his knees to search under the bed. More chirping, coming from across the barracks. David's heart sank as he spotted the dragon toddling down the center aisle, calling out for him. Soldiers were sitting up, staring at the impossible creature wandering between their bunks. "Reed." Sergeant Hayes switched on his flashlight, the beam catching the dragon's scales and making them flash with rainbow colors. "What in the name of Earth is that?" The dragon spotted David and chirped excitedly, galloping toward him on all fours. It crashed into his chest, climbing up to perch on his shoulder, nuzzling against his neck. "I can explain," David started. "You better," Hayes said, already reaching for his comm unit. Because command is going to lose their minds when they see this. Within 30 minutes, the barracks was swarming with officers. The dragon refused to leave David's shoulder, hissing at anyone who came too close. It spread its tiny wings in what might have been threatening if it wasn't so small, generating a faint shimmer in the air around them both. General Wallace herself showed up, a stern woman with iron gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She studied the dragon for a long moment, then looked at David. "Corporal Reed, my office. Now, and bring your friend." David stood at attention in front of her desk 10 minutes later, the dragon still perched on his shoulder, its tail wrapped around his arm. "Sir, I take full responsibility," he said. "I should have reported the egg immediately." "Yes, you should have." Wallace leaned back in her chair. "But we have a more immediate problem. That creature won't let anyone else near it." Dr. Cole tried to examine it in the hallway. Nearly lost a finger. The dragon chirped, pressing closer to David's neck. "It thinks I'm its parent," David admitted. "I was the first thing it saw when it hatched." Imprinting. Wallace drummed her fingers on the desk. "Wonderful. Do you have any idea what you've just complicated, Corporal?" David stayed silent. The dragon dozed against his shoulder, tiny chest rising and falling with peaceful breaths. That creature could be dangerous. It could be valuable. It could be the key to understanding this entire planet. Wallace stood, walking around the desk to peer at the sleeping dragon. "And it's bonded to a 23-year-old medic who can't follow simple protocol." "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Granted. It's just a baby," David said quietly. "Whatever else it is, it's just a scared baby that needed help." Wallace's expression softened, just slightly. "Get some sleep, Reed. Tomorrow, we figure out what to do with both of you." Dismissed. David left the office, the dragon warm against his shoulder, and wondered what he'd gotten himself into. The creature stirred, making a contented sound, and David felt that twist in his chest again. Whatever happened next, he'd make sure this little one was protected, even if it cost him everything. David sat outside the xenobiology lab, watching through the window as scientists swarmed around the dragon. River, he'd named it privately, though he hadn't told anyone yet. The little creature pressed itself against the glass, crying out for him with sounds that made his chest ache. "This is cruel," he muttered to Doctor. Raymond Cole emerged from the lab, pulling off sterile gloves. The older man looked tired, his usually neat hair standing in frustrated spikes. "Your dragon won't eat, won't drink, just keeps trying to break through the containment field to get to you. Then let me in there. Against protocol, we need to establish that the creature isn't carrying pathogens before allowing prolonged contact." Cole sat down beside David with a heavy sigh. "Though at this rate, it'll die of stress before we finish the tests." David's head snapped toward the doctor. Its heart rate is dangerously elevated. Stress hormones through the roof. Whatever bonding mechanism occurred when it hatched, breaking that connection is causing severe physiological distress." Cole rubbed his eyes. "I've recommended to General Wallace that you be allowed supervised contact, but she's consulting with command." Through the window, River paced frantically, tiny claws scratching at the glass. The shimmer David had seen before surrounded it again, brighter now, almost like heat waves rising from pavement. "What is that?" David pointed at the distortion. Cole's expression shifted to fascination. "We're not entirely sure. Some kind of energy field. It appeared when we tried to sedate the creature for examination." Technician Brown touched it and got thrown across the room. "Minor burns, nothing serious, but it scared the hell out of everyone." "It's protecting itself," David said. "It's terrified and alone." "Yes, and that's the problem." Cole pulled out a tablet, showing David scans and data he barely understood. "This species, whatever it is, appears to have evolved remarkable defensive capabilities. But it's also completely dependent on parental care in its early development. The combination makes it potentially dangerous." An alarm blared from inside the lab. Scientists scrambled as River's energy field flared brighter, crackling with visible sparks now. Equipment started sparking, screens flickering and dying. "Get Reed in there," someone shouted. Cole didn't argue. He yanked David through the door, and the moment River saw him, the energy field collapsed. The dragon launched itself across the room in a clumsy glide, crashing into David's arms and clinging to his chest like it would never let go. The shaking creature buried its face against David's neck, making broken, chirping sounds. David held it close, murmuring reassurances, not caring about the dozen scientists staring at them. Remarkable, Cole breathed, already taking readings. Heart rate normalizing. Stress hormones dropping. The field dissipated completely. General Wallace strode into the lab, flanked by 2 guards. She took in the scene with sharp eyes, then nodded curtly. Dr. Cole, your assessment. The bond is biological, not just psychological. Separation causes measurable harm to the creature, potentially fatal if prolonged. In Reed's safety, the creature has shown zero aggression toward him. Its defensive response only activates when threatened or separated from him. Cole gestured at his tablet. I've been reviewing xenobiology reports from other colonies. There are 3 documented species that exhibit similar imprinting behavior. In all cases, attempting to break the bond resulted in the death of the offspring. Wallace was quiet for a long moment, studying David and the dragon. River had stopped shaking but still clung to him, occasionally peeking out at the general with wary eyes. This complicates things considerably, Wallace finally said. We've received communication from the planet's indigenous population, the Serani. They've been watching our outpost. David felt ice in his stomach. Are we at war? No. They've been observing us, trying to determine our intentions. And apparently, they've been very interested in how we would handle one of their young. Wallace's expression was unreadable. Corporal Reed, you've just become the most important diplomatic asset on this planet, whether you wanted to or not. I don't understand. Cole jumped in, excitement clear in his voice. I've been analyzing the creature's biology. It's not entirely organic. There are crystalline structures in its bones, energy-conductive pathways in its nervous system. This is a created species, bioengineered. The Serani made them. For what purpose? We don't know yet. But the Serani emissaries are arriving tomorrow. They specifically requested to see the human who bonded with their sacred young. Wallace moved closer, her voice dropping. Reed, I need you to understand the gravity of this. First contact with an intelligent species is already delicate. You've accidentally inserted yourself into the middle of their most important cultural practice. River chirped, nuzzling against David's jaw. He felt the warmth of the small body, the trust in how it relaxed in his arms. Sacred or not, diplomatic asset or not, this was still just a baby that needed protection. What do you need me to do, sir? For now, don't let that dragon out of your sight. You're officially assigned as its handler until we understand more. Dr. Cole will work with you on basic care and safety protocols. Wallace's stern expression softened slightly. I'm told you're a medic. Good instincts for reading distress and providing care. That might be why this worked out. Or dumb luck, David muttered. In my experience, Corporal, there's not much difference. Wallace headed for the door, then paused. One more thing. The Serani message mentioned that dragon bonding is their highest honor, reserved for proven protectors. They're going to be watching how you treat that creature very carefully. Our entire relationship with this species may depend on it. The weight of those words settled over David like a physical thing. He looked down at River, who looked back with those huge golden eyes, completely trusting and utterly dependent on him. No pressure, he said weakly. Cole laughed, though it sounded strained. Come on, let's get you both set up in proper quarters. Can't have our diplomatic miracles sleeping in the barracks. They moved David to a small room near the lab, equipped with monitoring equipment and supplies. Cole showed him how to prepare the specialized food mixture River needed, how to check its vital signs, how to recognize signs of distress. River explored the new space with growing confidence, occasionally returning to David to make sure he was still there. The dragon's scales had fully hardened now, shimmering with subtle color shifts depending on the angle of light. Its wings were growing stronger too, allowing short gliding hops from furniture to furniture. It's learning fast, Cole observed, making notes. Accelerated development compared to Earth reptiles or birds. By my calculations, it'll be fully mobile within a week. Then what? Then we hope the Serani have answers. Because I have about 1,000 questions. Cole packed up his equipment. Get some rest, Reed. Tomorrow changes everything. After the doctor left, David sat on the floor, watching River investigate its new home. The dragon found a warm spot near a heating vent and curled up, but kept one eye on David, making sure he stayed close. I don't know what I'm doing, David admitted quietly, but I won't let anyone hurt you. That's a promise. River's tail flicked contentedly, and those golden eyes slowly closed. Within minutes, the dragon was asleep, tiny chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. David leaned back against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up to him. His life had been simple yesterday. Follow orders, keep his squad safe, count down the days until his deployment ended. Now he was responsible for a dragon, caught in the middle of first contact, and somehow expected to not mess up humanity's relationship with an entire alien civilization. He looked at the sleeping creature, so small and vulnerable, and felt that protective instinct flare again. Whatever came next, whatever the Serani wanted, whatever command decided, he'd keep River safe, even if the whole galaxy disagreed. The Serani arrived at dawn, their ship descending through the mist like something from a dream. David stood in the designated landing area, River perched on his shoulder and wrapped partially around his neck for security. The dragon's tail twitched nervously, but it didn't try to hide. Easy, David whispered. We'll be fine. River chirped quietly, and David felt something strange. Not a sound, but almost like a feeling pressed directly into his mind. Nervousness mixed with curiosity, and underneath it all, absolute trust in him. The Serani ship touched down with barely a whisper of displaced air. When the door opened, David got his first look at the aliens who'd been watching humanity from the shadows. They were tall and graceful, with skin that shifted between blue and purple depending on the light. Their faces were angular but kind, with large eyes that reminded David of River's golden gaze. They wore flowing garments covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move on their own. The lead Serani stepped forward, and every human soldier tensed. She raised her hands in what David hoped was a peaceful gesture. I am Elder Counselor Naya, she said in perfect English, her voice like wind chimes. We come in peace and in hope. General Wallace moved forward to greet her, but Naya's eyes were already locked on David and River. The elder's expression shifted through emotions David couldn't quite read, then settled into something that looked like wonder. A bonding, Naya breathed. A true bonding. I had hoped, but to see it with my own eyes. She approached slowly, and River tensed on David's shoulder. The dragon's protective shimmer started to form, but David touched its side gently. The shimmer faded, though River watched the Serani carefully. You are the one who found our young? Naya asked. Yes, ma'am. I mean, Elder. I found the egg during patrol. It hatched and... David gestured helplessly at the dragon on his shoulder. This happened. What is your name? Young human. Corporal David Reed, Elder. Naya smiled, the expression transforming her already beautiful features into something radiant. David Reed, the one chosen by River's heart. David blinked. I'm sorry, what? That is this one's true name. River's heart. The name sung into its creation. The name carried in its very essence. Naya tilted her head, studying them both. You named it River, yes? We felt the naming, the deepening of the bond. You have good instincts. I don't understand any of this, David admitted. Dr. Cole said the dragons are bioengineered, but nobody's told me why or what they're for. Naya gestured toward the command building. May we speak inside? This story is long, and your general should hear as well. They gathered in the main conference room, Serani on one side of the table, humans on the other. River stayed on David's shoulder, occasionally making soft sounds and projecting feelings of alertness mixed with protectiveness. The dragons, Naya began, are our most sacred creation, made to be companions, protectors, and bridges between souls. Each one is unique, grown from crystals found deep in our world's core and merged with organic material. They are part technology, part living being, and entirely precious to us. Why make them at all? Wallace asked. Because we nearly destroyed ourselves once long ago. Wars between our clans, each thinking themselves superior, each unwilling to understand the other. Naya's expression grew sad. The dragons were created as a solution. They bond to those with the capacity for true protection and compassion, regardless of clan or status. A bonded pair becomes a symbol of what we should all strive for: understanding, loyalty, and selfless care. Dr. Cole leaned forward, fascinated. The bonding process, it's permanent. Yes. Once imprinted, the dragon and its chosen are connected for life. The bond deepens over time, allowing them to share thoughts, emotions, eventually even physical sensations. Naya looked at David. River's heart will grow to match your environment, your needs. If you live in cold, it will generate warmth. If you face danger, it will protect you. The bond reshapes both dragon and chosen. That's incredible, Cole breathed. It is also why we have been watching your kind so carefully. Naya's tone grew serious. We have seen humans fight. We have seen your weapons, your military structures, your capacity for destruction. When River's heart was lost during a scouting mission, we feared the worst. You thought we'd hurt it, David said quietly, or use it as a weapon, or dissect it to understand its construction. Naya's gaze swept across the assembled humans. Many of my people argued we should destroy your outpost before you could do harm. But I convinced them to wait, to watch, to see if any human would show the compassion necessary for bonding. General Wallace's jaw tightened. And if Reed hadn't found the egg, if no one had bonded, we would have asked you to leave our world. Peacefully, if possible. Naya didn't flinch from the general's hard stare. We cannot share our planet with those who would harm our sacred ones. But David Reed has proven that humans are capable of the compassion we value. He risked his position, his future, to protect a helpless creature he didn't understand. River chirped and nuzzled David's cheek. He felt warmth from the dragon, affection and pride mixing together in that strange mental touch. What happens now? Wallace asked. Now we propose an alliance, a true partnership between our peoples. Naya gestured to the other Serani at the table. We have much to offer each other. Our bioengineering, your manufacturing, our agricultural knowledge, your medical advances, but must be built on trust. The dragons are the foundation of that trust, David realized. Yes, we would like to propose a cultural exchange. Young dragons who choose human partners, creating bonds between our species. Each bond a promise, a connection that cannot be broken by politics or misunderstanding. Naya smiled at River. River's heart was the first. But there are others ready to choose if worthy humans can be found. The room erupted in discussion. Military advisors worried about security. Scientists asked endless questions about the bonding process. Diplomats argued about treaty terms and cultural protocols. David tuned it all out, focusing on the weight of River on his shoulder, the warm presence in the back of his mind that was becoming as familiar as his own thoughts. The dragon had fallen asleep, trusting him completely, even surrounded by aliens and chaos. Reed? General Wallace's voice cut through the noise. You're quiet. Just thinking, sir, about how one lost egg changed everything. How one night in the rain led to all this. David looked at Naya. You said River will grow to match my environment. How big will it get? Naya's smile turned mysterious. That depends entirely on what you need, David Reed. The bond will decide. But I can tell you this. River's heart comes from a strong lineage. When fully grown, it will be magnificent. River stirred, making a sleepy sound, and David felt contentment wash through the bond. Not just contentment, belonging. The dragon had found where it was supposed to be, and nothing in the universe would convince it otherwise. I have one condition, David said suddenly. If we're doing this cultural exchange, if other soldiers are going to bond with dragons, they need proper training. Not just military protocol, but understanding what the bond means. What responsibility it carries. You would teach them? Naya asked. Someone has to. And River and I, we're figuring it out together. Might as well help others do the same. Wallace studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Agreed. Reed, you're promoted to lieutenant, effective immediately. You'll establish and oversee the Human-Dragon Integration Program. Full authority to set standards and training protocols. David nearly fell out of his chair. Sir, I'm just a medic. I don't have command experience. You have something better. You have a bond that's about to change the course of two civilizations. Wallace's stern expression softened slightly. Besides, River seems to think you're qualified. I'm inclined to trust its judgment. River woke up fully at the sound of its name, looking around with alert golden eyes. The dragon chirped questioningly, and David felt its curiosity about all the attention. It's okay, he murmured. Just more proof that our life just got very complicated. River's response was crystal clear in his mind. Not words, but meaning. Complicated didn't matter. They were together. Everything else would work itself out. David hoped the dragon was right. 3 weeks later, David was running combat drills with River when the alarm started screaming. The dragon had grown considerably, now the size of a large dog with wings that could carry it in genuine flight for short bursts. Its scales had darkened to deep blue-green, and the energy field it could generate was strong enough to stop small arms fire. They'd been practicing coordination, learning to move as one unit. All personnel to defensive positions. The announcement blared across the compound. We are under attack. This is not a drill. David's combat instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed his rifle and headed for the armory, River gliding alongside him. Through their bond, he felt the dragon's sudden shift to alertness to readiness. Stay close, he ordered, though he knew River wouldn't leave his side anyway. The compound was chaos. Soldiers ran in practice formations while civilians evacuated to reinforce shelters. Through the windows, David saw ships descending, sleek and aggressive, their hulls marked with symbols he didn't recognize. General Wallace was already in the command center, coordinating defenses. She saw David and River and nodded sharply. The Krenn Dominion. They've been monitoring our communications with the Serani. Apparently, they want the dragons for themselves. How many ships? 6 that we can see. Unknown ground forces. Wallace pulled up tactical displays. They're hitting hard and fast, trying to overwhelm us before we can mount a proper defense. An explosion rocked the building. River's protective shimmer flared to life automatically, shielding David from falling debris. Through the bond, David felt the dragon's anger, its determination to protect him. Where do you need us? David asked. East wall is taking the heaviest fire. If it falls, they'll flood into the compound. Wallace looked at River, then at David. I'm not ordering you into combat with that dragon. But if you're willing, we're in. David was already moving toward the door. Come on, River. They reached the east wall to find it barely holding. Energy bolts hammered the defensive barriers while enemy soldiers advanced under covering fire. Human defenders returned fire, but they were outnumbered and being pushed back. David took position behind cover, adding his rifle to the defensive line. River crouched beside him, wings tucked tight, eyes tracking enemy movements with predatory focus. An enemy soldier broke through the line, raising a weapon toward a cluster of human defenders. River moved before David could even think. The dragon launched itself through the air, wings spread wide, and slammed into the enemy with a shriek that made everyone flinch. The Krenn soldier went down hard. River's energy field expanded, creating a barrier that absorbed incoming fire. The dragon wheeled and dove, using hit-and-run tactics that would have made any flight instructor proud. David felt everything through the bond. River's exhilaration in flight, its fierce protectiveness, its tactical thinking as it identified threats and neutralized them. The dragon wasn't just acting on instinct. It was fighting smart, working with the human soldiers like it had trained with them for years instead of weeks. Reed, on your 6, someone shouted. David spun, bringing his rifle up, but River was already there. The dragon's energy field caught the incoming explosive containing the blast. The feedback made River cry out in pain, but it held the barrier until the danger passed. David felt the dragon's pain like it was his own. River fall back. The dragon ignored him, pressing the attack. More Krenn soldiers were breaking through, and River positioned itself between them and the human defenders. The dragon had grown protective of more than just David. It recognized the other humans as part of its extended pack, worthy of defense, A massive Krenn war machine rolled through the breach, its weapons tracking toward the command center. River saw it and made a sound David had never heard before, something between a roar and a challenge. "No, don't," David started, but River was already airborne. The dragon dove at the war machine, energy field blazing so bright it was hard to look at directly. River slammed into the machine's sensor array, claws tearing at critical systems while its field disrupted the targeting computers. The war machine's weapons fired wildly, nearly hitting its own troops. Krenn's soldiers scattered as their own vehicle became a liability. River pressed the advantage, systematically destroying the machine's offensive capabilities. Then David saw the cannon swivel toward River. Charging for a point-blank shot the dragon couldn't possibly dodge. Time seemed to slow. David felt River's sudden fear through the bond, felt the dragon's resignation that it might not survive, but determination to protect its family anyway. No. David was running before he realized it, rifle firing on full auto at the war machine's cannon. The shots did nothing, but they drew attention. The cannon started to track toward him instead. River screamed in fury and dove between David and the weapon. The energy field exploded outward with more power than David had ever seen from the dragon. The cannon fired, and for a terrifying second, David thought they were both dead. But River's field held. Barely. The dragon strained against the energy blast, wings spread wide, every scale glowing with internal light. The feedback was incredible. David felt it through the bond, felt River drawing on their connection for strength, and David gave it. Everything he had, every ounce of will and determination and refusal to lose this dragon that had become so much more than a companion. Through the bond, he pushed his own strength into River, supporting the dragon's defense. The energy blast dissipated. The war machine's cannon overloaded and exploded. River dropped from the air, wings folding, and David caught the dragon before it hit the ground. They both collapsed, gasping for breath. River was injured, burns across its scales where the energy feedback had been too intense. But it was alive. They both were. Sarani warriors chose that moment to arrive, their own ships descending from above. Naya had brought reinforcements, and the Krenn forces suddenly found themselves caught between two armies. The battle turned quickly after that. Krenn soldiers retreated to their ships, abandoning the assault. Within an hour, the compound was secure again, though the damage was extensive. Dr. Cole found David and River in the medical bay, both being treated for injuries. The dragon lay on a specially designed table, accepting treatment from Sarani healers with surprising patience. David sat beside it, one hand on River's neck, maintaining the physical connection they both needed. "You're both incredibly lucky," Cole said, scanning River's injuries. "The feedback from that energy burst should have killed it. You too, for that matter. The amount of power you pushed through the bond. I couldn't let River face that alone," David said quietly. His head pounded, and his whole body ached, but River was alive. That was all that mattered. Naya entered the medical bay, her expression grave. The Krenn will return. They saw what River's heart can do, what a bonded pair can accomplish. They will want that power. "Then we'll be ready," General Wallace said from the doorway. She looked exhausted but determined. "Reed, how long until you and River can fight again?" "River needs time to heal. A few days, maybe a week." David looked at the dragon, feeling its fatigue through the bond. "But we'll be ready when you need us." Wallace nodded. "Good, because I'm accelerating the integration program. We need more bonded pairs, more defenders who can work with the Sarani forces. I'm authorizing you to select candidates and begin training immediately." River lifted its head, golden eyes bright despite the injuries. Through the bond, David felt the dragon's approval, its eagerness to help build something bigger than just the two of them. "We can do that," David said. "River and I will teach them everything we've learned." Naya smiled, though worry still shadowed her features. "The Krenn have made their intentions clear. But so have you, David Reed. You and River's heart fought, not just for yourselves, but for all of us. Human and Sarani together." David looked around the medical bay at the human doctors working alongside Sarani healers at soldiers from both species helping each other with injuries. The battle had been terrifying and costly, but it had proven something important. They were stronger together. And with River at his side, David was ready to build a future worth fighting for. David woke to pain lancing through his left side. He gasped, clutching at ribs that felt like they were on fire, before realizing the pain wasn't his. It was River's. The dragon lay curled at the foot of his bed, whimpering softly. The burns from the battle had seemed minor at first, but infection had set in during the night. Through the bond, David felt every bit of the dragon's suffering. "Medic!" David shouted, stumbling out of bed. "I need a medic now." Dr. Cole arrived within minutes, Sarani healers close behind. They worked frantically, treating the infected tissue while River thrashed weakly. The dragon's energy field flickered erratically, making it difficult to get close. "David, you need to calm it down," Cole said urgently. "The field is interfering with treatment." David pressed his hands against River's neck, ignoring the painful feedback from the unstable energy. "I'm here. You're going to be okay. Just let them help." River's golden eyes found his, filled with pain and fear. Through the bond, David felt the dragon's confusion. It didn't understand why it hurt so much, why the healing wasn't working faster. "I know," David whispered. "I know it hurts, but you're strong. You're the strongest dragon I know." The energy field stabilized slightly, enough for the healers to work. David stayed there, maintaining contact, pushing reassurance and comfort through the bond, even as River's pain echoed through him. The IT took hours. By the time the healers finished, both David and River were exhausted. The dragon finally slept, breathing easier, while David sagged against the wall and tried not to throw up from the phantom pain still ghosting through his nervous system. "The bond goes both ways," Naya said quietly, appearing beside him. "River's pain becomes yours. Your strength becomes River's. This is what it means to be truly connected. Does it get easier? No, but you learn to bear it together. That's what makes bonded pairs so formidable. Neither can fall while the other stands." Naya helped him to a chair. "You saved River's life by keeping it calm. Your presence made the difference." David looked at the sleeping dragon, watching its sides rise and fall steadily. "It saved my life during the battle. Seems only fair." Over the next week, River recovered slowly. David never left the dragon's side except when absolutely necessary. He slept in the medical bay, ate his meals there, and handled his new duties coordinating the integration program from a makeshift office in the corner. Volunteers for the bonding program flooded in. David interviewed them carefully, looking for the qualities Naya had described: compassion, protectiveness, the ability to put another's needs before their own. Private Lisa Chun was his first selection. She was a combat medic like he'd been, with a gentle manner and fierce loyalty to her squad. When David introduced her to a young dragon, the creature took one look at her and climbed in her lap like it had found home. "Oh," Lisa breathed, as the dragon nuzzled against her chest. "Oh, this is amazing. That's the bond forming," David explained, watching the shimmer that surrounded them both. "You'll start feeling its emotions soon, then sharing thoughts. Eventually, you'll move as one unit in combat. Does it hurt? The connection?" David thought about River's pain echoing through him, about the exhaustion of pushing strength through the bond during battle. "Sometimes, but it's worth it." More bondings followed. Sergeant Mike Torres paired with a dragon that matched his steady, protective nature. Private Rachel Kim found herself chosen by a dragon that seemed to share her quick reflexes and tactical thinking. Each bonding was unique, each pair developing their own dynamic. River watched it all from its recovery bed, projecting curiosity and satisfaction through the bond. The dragon was proud, David realized. Proud to see its kind choosing worthy humans. Proud of the family they were building. 2 weeks after the Krenn attack, River was cleared for light duty. The dragon had grown even more during recovery, now large enough that riding was possible. David discovered this by accident when River simply crouched down and looked at him expectantly. "You want me to get on?" David asked. That River's response was clear. "Of course. We are one. Where you go, I go." This way is faster. David climbed carefully onto the dragon's back, finding natural grips in the ridge of scales along River's spine. The moment he settled into place, he felt the connection deepen. River's senses became his own. He could feel the wind under its wings, the strength coiled in its muscles, the joy building at the prospect of flight. "Okay," David said, barely believing what he was about to do. "Let's try this." River launched into the air with a powerful leap. David's stomach dropped as the ground fell away, but the sensation of flight through the bond was incredible. They were flying, actually flying. River's wings beat in steady rhythm, carrying them higher above the compound. Through the dragon's eyes, David saw the world in sharper detail. He felt the subtle shifts in air currents, understood instinctively how to bank and turn. They weren't just dragon and rider. They were one being with two bodies working in perfect harmony. General Wallace was waiting when they landed. She watched David slide off River's back, looking slightly dazed but grinning like a fool. "I see you've discovered a new capability," she said dryly. "Sir, that was incredible. The tactical applications alone." David's mind was already racing with possibilities. Aerial reconnaissance, rapid response, coordinated attacks from multiple angles. If all the bonded pairs can do this, I know. That's why I'm here. Wallace's expression grew serious. "Intelligence reports indicate the Krenn are massing forces. They're not done with us. We need every advantage we can get." David felt River's immediate alertness, the dragon's readiness to defend their home. "How long do we have?" "A month. Maybe less. I need you to accelerate training. Get those new pairs combat ready as fast as safely possible." "We can do that." David looked at the training ground where new bonded pairs were learning basic coordination. "River and I will teach them everything we know." The next few weeks were intense. David pushed the new pairs hard, but fairly, teaching them not just combat tactics, but the deeper aspects of the bond. How to share strength during crisis. How to interpret their dragon's needs and emotions. How to fight as one seamless unit. Lisa and her dragon, Storm, proved to be natural flyers. Mike and his dragon, Shield, excelled at defensive tactics. Rachel and Swift developed lightning-fast strike capabilities. Each pair found their specialty, their unique contribution to the team. The Serani provided advanced training as well. Naya taught the humans about dragon biology, about the crystalline structures that allowed energy manipulation, about the ancient traditions surrounding the bonds. Serani warriors demonstrated combat techniques refined over centuries. River grew larger and stronger, the bond with David deepening daily. They could now share complex thoughts, strategize together, even share sensory input when needed. The dragon's scales had darkened to almost black, shot through with veins of electric blue that glowed when its energy field activated. One evening, David sat with River overlooking the compound. The sun set in brilliant colors, and through the bond, he felt the dragon's contentment at the view, its satisfaction at watching their new family train below. "We did good, didn't we?" David said quietly. "Built something worth protecting." River's response was warm, filled with affection and pride. They had built more than a fighting force. They'd built bridges between species, proven that cooperation and compassion could overcome prejudice and fear. The alarm would sound again eventually. The Krenn would return. But when they did, they'd face not just human soldiers or Serani warriors, but bonded pairs who fought with the strength of two species combined. David felt River's confidence through the bond, felt the dragon's absolute certainty that they would prevail. Together, they were unstoppable, and together, they would protect everything they'd built, and no matter what came next. The Krenn returned with 3 times the force they'd brought before. Their ships darkened the sky, and their war machines rolled across Verdania's landscape like a mechanical plague. But this time, humanity and the Serani stood ready. David sat astride River on the command tower, watching the enemy approach. Around them, 11 other bonded pairs prepared for battle. Lisa and Storm hovered nearby, the dragon's wings creating powerful downdrafts. Mike and Shield took position at the defensive line, ready to protect vulnerable points. Rachel and Swift performed aerial reconnaissance, feeding tactical data through the communications network. All pairs, status check. David called over the comm one by one. They reported in. Ready, eager, unafraid. Through his bond with River, David felt the dragon's fierce determination. They had built something beautiful here. A family, a future. The Krenn would not take it. General Wallace's voice crackled through the comm. All units, engage at will. Show them what happens when they threaten our home. River roared, the sound echoed by 11 other dragons. Then they were airborne, diving in a battle with their human partners, moving in perfect synchronization. The Krenn forces had expected resistance. What they got was devastation. Bonded pairs fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. David and River led the aerial assault, the dragon's energy barriers deflecting incoming fire while David coordinated attacks. They'd learned to fight as one organism, River providing mobility and power while David supplied tactical thinking and precision. Storm and Lisa hit hard and fast, disabling war machines with surgical strikes. Shield and Mike protected ground forces, the dragon's massive energy barriers holding against sustained bombardment. Swift and Rachel harassed enemy supply lines, cutting off reinforcements before they could reach the front. The Serrani warriors fought alongside them, their own tactics complementing the bonded pairs perfectly. It was beautiful and terrifying, two species fighting as one army with complete trust in each other. David felt a spike of warning through the bond. River had spotted something, a Krenn command ship hanging back from the main battle. The dragon banked hard, wings tucking for speed. "I see it too," David said aloud, though River already knew his thoughts. "Let's take it down." They climbed rapidly, bursting through cloud cover. The command ship's weapons tracked them, but River was too fast, too agile. The dragon wove between energy blasts, closing the distance. David felt River gathering power, felt the crystalline structures in the dragon's body channeling massive amounts of energy. This was new, something they hadn't tried before. Something dangerous. "River, wait. We don't know if you can handle that much power." The dragon's response was absolute confidence. Together, they could handle anything. David made his choice in a heartbeat. He opened the bond fully, holding nothing back, offering River everything he had. "Then let's do this together." River's energy field exploded outward, bright enough to rival the sun. The dragon channeled it, focused it, and released it in a concentrated beam that punched through the command ship shields like they weren't even there. The ship's engines detonated in a cascade of explosions. The feedback hit David and River like a physical blow. They tumbled from the sky, neither one able to control their flight. David felt the dragon's panic, felt River desperately trying to recover before they hit the ground. Then Storm was there, Lisa's dragon, catching the midfall. Shield moved into position below, creating an energy cushion. Swift and the other dragons formed a protective circle, holding off enemy forces while David and River recovered. "We've got you," Lisa called over the comm. "Rest. We'll handle this." David felt overwhelming gratitude, not just from himself, but from River too. Their family, their pack, everyone they'd trained, everyone they'd bonded with. Now protecting them the way they'd been protected, River's strength returned slowly. The dragon struggled to its feet on Shield's broad back, shaking off the disorientation. Through the bond, David felt River's determination to return to the fight. "You sure?" David asked. That River's response was clear. Their family was still fighting. They belonged in the sky. David climbed onto River's back, and the dragon launched into the air again. Not at full strength, but strong enough. Together, they were always strong enough. The battle raged for hours. The Krenn threw everything they had at the defenders, but the bonded pairs held the line. Every time an enemy pushed forward, dragons and their humans drove them back. Every time the Krenn tried a new tactic, the defenders adapted. Finally, battered and beaten, the Krenn forces retreated. Their ships limped away from Verdania, leaving behind destroyed war machines and the ruins of their ambitions. The last enemy vessel disappeared from scanners. Cheers erupted across the compound. Humans and Serrani embraced, celebrating their victory. Dragons roared triumphantly, their voices raised in concert. David and River landed in the main courtyard, both exhausted but alive. The moment River's feet touched the ground, the dragon collapsed. Not from injury, but from sheer exhaustion. David slid off and sat beside the dragon, leaning against River's warm bulk. "We did it," he said quietly. "We actually did it." River's response was contentment mixed with pride. They had protected their family. Nothing else mattered. The other bonded pairs landed nearby, their dragons settling into a loose circle around David and River. It was instinctive, protective, a family gathering after battle to ensure everyone was safe. General Wallace approached the circle, and the dragons watched her carefully, but didn't see a threat. She'd proven herself a protector too, in her own way. "Lieutenant Reed," she said formally, then smiled. "Or should I say, Commander Reed, you've earned another promotion, along with command of the entire integration program." "Sir, I'm not qualified to be a commander. You trained 12 bonded pairs from scratch. You led them in battle against overwhelming odds and won. You've built something unprecedented here." Wallace gestured at the dragons and their humans. "I'd say you're more than qualified." Naya joined them, looking tired but radiant with joy. "The Krenn will not return. Not after this defeat. They've learned that Verdania is protected by bonds stronger than any weapon they possess." "What happens now?" David asked. "Now we build." Naya smiled at the assembled pairs. "More bondings, more cooperation, a true alliance between our peoples." And it all started because one human showed compassion to a lost dragon. David looked at River, remembering that rainy night in the jungle. The tiny creature struggling from its egg. The helpless baby that had chosen him as its parent. Now River was magnificent, powerful, a defender of worlds. But through the bond, David felt the same trust, the same unconditional love the dragon had shown from the very beginning. Size didn't matter. Power didn't matter. The bond was everything. River lifted its head, nuzzling against David's shoulder. The dragon projected warmth and belonging, satisfaction at their life together. "Yeah," David said softly, scratching behind River's jaw ridge. "I wouldn't change a thing, either." The sun set over Verdania, painting the sky in brilliant colors. In the courtyard, dragons and humans rested together, celebrating their victory and dreaming of their future. A future built on trust, cooperation, and bonds that could never be broken. David closed his eyes, feeling River's steady breathing, feeling the connections flowing between all the bonded pairs like threads of light. They were family now, human and Serani and dragon, all woven together into something new and beautiful. The baby dragon had thought David was its mom. The army had disagreed at first, called it a complication, a diplomatic incident. But in the end, everyone agreed on one thing. The bond between David and River had changed everything. Two species, united by compassion and protected by those willing to fight for something bigger than themselves. And as River drifted into peaceful sleep, David felt the dragon's final thought echo through the bond. A simple feeling, but one that meant everything. Home. They were home, exactly where they belonged, surrounded by family worth protecting. Together, they would guard this home. Together, they would build a future bright enough to rival the stars. Together, always together, they were unstoppable, the end of one battle, the beginning of everything else.